Hey, do you guys want to hear a crazy story about my ex-husband's trust fund? Of course you do. Okay, so if you watched my Who the Fuck Did I Marry videos, I did explain that my ex-husband had a trust fund. Also explain that there's a whole story surrounding that, and that's the story I'm going to tell you today. And here's part one, I guess. So where did it come from? It came from his grandpa. Kendall, my ex-husband, his mother, his biological mother, had him when she was 17, I believe. And so she was young and very irresponsible. She had a problem with drugs, and she ended up giving custody to her sister. And so his biological mom's sister is who he called his mom growing up. So biological mom, her father, his name is Rhodey. He's been dead for about 25 years now. How he made the money was he was a farmer, then he was a butcher, and then he opened up a restaurant called Bacon Hill. Then he ended up owning a strip mall with that restaurant in it. The strip mall that he owned, he ended up selling to a big supermarket chain called Martin Supermarkets, which is a supermarket chain that's local to our area. Rhodey got sick, got old. He had his kids when he was like really old. As far as I understand, Rhodey and his wife Fran were not good parents. What ended up happening was Fran passed away, Rhodey got sick, passed away. Rhodey had a trust fund that he created for my husband's biological mom. And she, like I said, had a drug problem. She was very irresponsible. She ended up in prison. She blew through all of her money very quickly. However, before she got a chance to blow through all of that money, this is where the adoption comes in. Kendall's adoptive mother petitioned the court to split the trust fund in half. Biological mom had a drug problem. They obviously established a solid evidence and history of that with the court for the court to rule this type of thing. The judge split like whatever she had, which was around $1 million. He split it in half so that half would go to Kendall, my ex-husband. They were able to use it for some really great education for him. He ended up using it to go to flight school when he graduated high school. And so he has his pilot's license because of the trust fund. He bought his first house with it, which is where I come in. He bought his first house with his trust fund, and he ended up setting up a situation where the trust fund provided him weekly distributions for him to help live off of, right? Only issue was, like, it was really unsustainable. So I'm going to go ahead and start part two now. Part two of my ex-husband's trust fund story. So, he had received his money when he was 18 years old. There were rules to it. He didn't just receive it all at once. He could only use it for certain things. He had to go through a trust officer at a bank that helped him manage it. I filmed all of this already, and then part two I went to edit and all of the sound was gone. So I'm just going to summarize part two when I found out about his trust fund. So we were newly dating, probably about 6 months into our relationship, and I found out about it because we were both working really low-paying, shitty jobs. Like I was working as a CNA for like $10 an hour, and he was working at Jimmy John's for like $10 an hour, right? $9, $10 an hour, something like that. And he told me that his mom helped him buy his house. And I believe that because I was like 18 years old and I didn't really know how home buying worked yet. We were planning a trip to Nevada, and at this point it was like really close to when we were supposed to go on the trip, and I was like, hey, I only have this amount saved. It's not very much. How are we going to pay for this trip? Because it doesn't look like you have a lot saved either, since you're living paycheck to paycheck and working at Jimmy John's. And then he sat and explained to me everything about his trust fund. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. And to me, it was absolutely mind-blowing, because I grew up at or below the poverty line, for like most, if not all, of my childhood. So I wasn't used to like a vast amount of resources. I couldn't really wrap my head around that idea. So it was kind of crazy, like, that he had been left this generational wealth. I was like, wow, your grandpa left you this money? Like, to put it in perspective, my grandpa's like my mom's dad himself when I was little, and then my dad's dad, he lived to his 70s, but he ended up dying of a massive heart attack after he was robbed by hookers that he hired to have sex with each other in front of him while he did coke. So just to compare, like, expectations from families and generational wealth type of thing, mine were, and his were, he ended up getting engaged about a year into our relationship. So I found out about like 4 to 6 months into our relationship. We got engaged about a year in, and then we got married about 6 months after that because I was pregnant. So I'll talk about that more in part 3. Okay, so part 3. Let's go to when we get married, because we were living in the town I'm in now, the town we met, the town we're from. When he convinced me to move an hour away, I had to quit my job, switch schools, and to a different, like an out-of-state school, because we moved out of state. It was just an hour away. I got pregnant shortly after that, which made me even more reliant on the trust fund and the weekly money we were living off of from it. And then we just kind of fell into that pattern. And probably every 6 months, I would be like, hey, you need to get a real job or a higher paying job, or, stay at the same job for more than, 8 months, so that you can actually make an income and not rely on this trust fund, because it's not sustainable and it will run out, because it's not unlimited. It wasn't. Every 6 months I'd be writing his ass about it. And at that point, I was just so deep into being a stay-at-home mom, and, we didn't have childcare. It was just me and him. And he was very little help, let's be honest. We owned the house, because of the trust fund, so we didn't have a mortgage payment. The weekly distributions covered all of our bills, and a few like once here and there. So it was like fine until I finally made him get a job. And I'm like, hey, you can't just keep relying on this. And as soon as we can get childcare, I'm getting a job too. And it got to the point where that never happened, and he kept quitting jobs and getting new jobs. Finally, I filed for divorce. When we got married, he said, I'm not going to make you sign a prenup since you've, been fully reliant on me financially. And I was like, great, thanks, buddy. Over the course of our marriage, I had accumulated some assets because of the trust fund. So I was able to have an IRA, have savings, and have the house increase in value. And that was all good until the marriage ended. So when I filed for divorce, he quit his job immediately and ran off to Pennsylvania. which was about 400 miles away from where we are. And he, I want to say, had about 50 grand in his trust fund at that point. And he drained our bank account that the weekly distributions were coming into. So I only had, luckily, my student loan money set aside in a different account. And I had my IRA and just a tiny bit of savings in my own name, in my own bank account, so that he couldn't drain, because I had anticipated this coming a little bit. Just a little bit. I didn't think he would go full nutso and completely drain our bank account with that his trust fund was going into. So then I called his trust fund officer, like crying, because she actually has known him like since he was a baby. She met me when Kendall and I got engaged, and like she was very familiar with me at that point in our marriage, because this was like 7 years later. I said, hey, he took off to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and took all of our money, and I am a stay-at-home mom with literally nothing, and I'm trapped here. And I'm like crying to her and stuff, and she's like, okay, let me call you back. I need to talk to some people. She calls me back, and she's like, I legally can't distribute funds to anyone but him without his permission. I can only give you money if he says that it's okay for me to give you money. And of course, he wasn't doing that. Like, as soon as he left, no more trust fund for me to support the kids on, because he left the kids with me. And I was fully responsible for them. And we later subpoenaed his bank statements during the divorce, and that trust fund, it was getting blown at bars. It was like hundreds and hundreds of dollars at bars. Like, he had to be buying tons of drinks and food for people. Hundreds of dollars at a pizza place. Hundreds of dollars, OnlyFans girls, and like Cash App transactions to like hookers. That's what he spent all of his money on. And during that time, he had a high-paying job for 6 months, and he didn't save any of that and didn't send any money to us during that time. So I was like fully on my own, paying for everything for me and the kids. He wasn't sending any money at all. He had $50,000 and he sent me zero of it to support his children. And I'm really glad he blew through it all, because it took away all of his power. Because I won the house in the divorce, I have preserved the only tiny percent of what is left of it. It's gone now. Like, all of that wealth could have been saved for our kids, could have been put aside. He could have worked a normal job his whole adulthood, like a normal person, like a normal, hardworking person, with just a little bit of motivation, a little bit of ambition. And, like, he could have put it all in a high-yield, like, IRA or whatever the fuck, that you do with all that money, and like, we could have been millionaires. But that's what happens when you're a lazy fuck. So part 4, I'm just gonna wrap all this up. Part 4 and final part of my ex-husband's trust fund story. So long story short, he wasted so much of it on laziness and trying to buy people's attention and friendships, and just trying to buy attention, trying to buy relationships, trying to buy sex, trying to buy validation. He was a loser with money. Now he's a loser without money. So I guess, like, this just goes to show that You can't be just like, don't be a shitty person and you won't fuck up your life. Like, like, I'm so pissed that that money could have set my kids for life. That could have set my kids up for life. It could have at least paid for their fucking college. Like, we could have at least fucking... And I tried so hard. I had money in accounts saved for them, and all of that got drained in the divorce and the bankruptcy. Like, I couldn't preserve almost any of it for the kids or myself. The only thing that could be preserved was this house that I'm living in, that I own. And I work really hard to maintain this house, and so does my fiance, who is a very good person, and he gets to enjoy the benefits of this home with me, and our children. Like, this house is rightfully mine, of course, but this house is rightfully theirs. Like, it's the only piece of wealth that I can preserve for the kids. And that's just really important to me, because I didn't get that growing up, which is just the card that I was dealt. Like, I didn't have anyone that preserved any wealth for me, which is fine. A lot of people don't get that, you know, but the fact that he got that chance and just completely blew it out of pure selfishness and laziness is just mind-blowing to me. Like, I can't stand it. I know that I had a part in enabling it while we were married, but I'm not gonna fucking hold that against myself forever. I'm not gonna beat myself up about it forever. I did my best to preserve that wealth. So you're welcome, Rhodey. Like, fuck. He job hops like every 3 to 6 months at this point, and just like lives off of scraps and has like 10 roommates, like, is what I'm guessing, because that's where he was headed when he ran out of money. He's got several lawsuits against him for owing people money right now. That's just the natural consequence. But yeah, it really sucks that all of that was just dwindled. It was all just wasted. So I'm doing my part. Crazy, right? Yeah, it just goes to show, don't be a lazy piece of shit. Stay in school.